Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
In this episode, ending a long-term campaign. Welcome to Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
In this episode, ending a long-term campaign. Second recording.
So the question is, after you've been playing a campaign for a long time, what do you actually do with the characters and the setting of that campaign? You know, what do you do? Do you get rid of them? Do you try to recycle them? What? Because you've been playing for years and you must have invested a lot into that campaign. Well, what do you actually do with it?
Yeah. Do you kill off the characters? Do you transfer them to a new campaign of the level that they ended at? Do you let them recycle and restart their character, like reincarnating or resurrecting them? Or do you just give them some closure?
Yeah. And the question comes up because in our gaming group now, we're getting ready to end a campaign that we've been on for, what, a couple years? I think. Maybe a year and a half.
So there's the one that you're currently on, which you've been on in a year and a half.
Yeah.
Which we're getting ready to close that up probably in a couple of months or so.
Correct.
And then there's another one that we never got to complete.
Yeah.
Which is the original campaign that I started when Tom and I met and started gaming together.
Yeah. So that's been going on for about 10 years. Now, the problem with the old campaign...
Longer than that, 2006.
Oh, boy, that's way long.
2007.
Yeah, that's been way long then. The problem with that campaign is that we were getting close. Right before COVID, we were getting close to completion. We were on the track of the plot, and we were working our way around. We'd come up with an idea, what we wanted to do. And as what happens with a lot of long-term games, with characters and people interacting... We had an implosion in our group, mainly because of not character politics, but interplayer politics. Personal politics, okay? And everybody, we had some issues where people just decided they didn't want to game together anymore. And the whole thing just collapsed. That was bad because we had been playing for years, and we had some people who had been involved in the game for many years, over 5 years, and for some reason they just could not stand to be in the same room with each other for even just a few hours every couple weeks anymore. And that game just collapsed.
Yeah.
And it was sad because we'd really invested a lot into it.
Really sad.
Yeah.
Because I, as a DM, working towards bringing it to an end, and then it just fell apart. What happened?
Yeah.
So, what do you do in that instance? Well, in the instance that we've got going on right now, we've got the Wildlander campaign.
Yeah, which is set in the same setting.
Same world. It's just
world.
in the far north.
Yeah.
And it's set 95 years into the future of the original campaign.
Right, right.
So that party is getting ready to finish out. So what do we do with those characters? Do I kill them off after they complete the campaign? Does the player kill them off? Do we transfer them to yet another campaign further down the road? Do we just let them ride off into the sunset and never have any closure? Or do you give them closure? Now, my view on this is I want to give my players some closure. We've had, in all my years, since 1979, I've had one campaign that ever got to come to an end.
Just one campaign. Just one. That's the only one that ended.
Since 1979, because all the other ones have fell apart because of people moving away, the group disbanding, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating as a player. It's
Very
frustrating as a DM. So, in that campaign, we never got to have closure. Not real closure.
No.
We finished the plot, but what happened to our characters? Nothing happened to them.
Yeah.
And I don't. I always wonder what happened to that character. I didn't, as a player, I didn't get to fulfill what I wanted as closure.
Yeah.
And there were two things that could have happened with her. And then there was Tom's character, who was a bard. What would he do? I was playing a swashbuckler who had been a noble, who had became a pirate, and now she was negotiating to try and marry the king's son so she could become the next queen.
Yeah.
Or was she just going to sail off into the sunset and become the pirate queen that she had been a crew member of? And I always wonder, where do I play that off in my head? Yeah, I could have gone this way, I could have gone this way, but with the DM, I never got to have the closure. And you never got to have the closure as your bard. What did he do? Did he ride off into the sunset becoming Mick Jagger? And,
Well, he was a high-level bard. And you start out at level 1, and I think he was level 8 or something.
I think we were like 8 or 9.
8 or 9 at the time, which, high-level bard, you can do a lot of stuff.
And this was a 3.5 campaign.
Yeah, that we had converted over to Pathfinder.
Right, because this happened right when Pathfinder was coming out.
Yeah. With my bard character, it seemed to me like he was a traveling bard, kind of a traveling storyteller. I figured that he would probably end up in another adventure somewhere. Just as you're rounding up this adventure, he would have a few minor adventures here and there, and then he would get involved in something else that would kind of, draw him in, some other kind of quest or something like that. Nothing like that ever really got worked out, and so we just pretty much just ended the campaign, and that was it. And I appreciate the fact that he ended it, our DM ended it and brought it to a close, because
but it wasn't to a full closure.
It wasn't. We didn't achieve any kind of actual character closure. And my question would be to people who watch this channel is, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about having a character that you've invested so much in just end?
Right.
Or worse yet, break apart, and so you get no closure. How do you feel about that?
Exactly. It's frustrating as a player. It's frustrating even as a DM, really, if you don't get to finish off your world, your campaign, your idea, what you wanted to see happen at the end.
Yeah.
It just kind of falls dead.
Yeah. And of course that goes to say then, you've got characters, but what do you do with the setting? What do you do with the whole setting there? And do you just end it? Do you just skip, do you just skip to another setting? Do you just end that world? Take all your notes that you've created about economics and all the deities and everything, the big stack of stuff, you just take them and shove them in the bottom drawer and forget about them? Or do you try to recycle it into another adventure?
Yeah.
What would you do with that? I mean, Delaney has invested a lot in Edain. Truly, a lot. There's a lot of backstory, a lot of subplot, a lot of economic
history,
a lot of different sorts of character studies, a lot of cultural different diversity. What do you do with that? Do you just shuck it, or do you keep creating characters or keep creating plots within that same world?
Right. Or do you move on? After shucking that one, you have another world that you're going to bring out and start developing and have your players adventure in. I think most DMs probably try to use the same world.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of work. Why would you dunk everything, after you've done so much work on it?
Now, my world was initially called Macedane, then I shortened it to just Edain.
Yeah.
And Macedane, I started back in the 80s. So,
wow, that's a long time.
It's been around a long time, so there's all this history. So, the original campaign took place in what started off in the year 663 in this epoch, I guess you could call it. Because there's, you have AD and you have BC, in our world. Well, this one had GR, and then it had LG, and then it has RG. Mm-hmm. And each one means something.
Yeah.
Well, this one takes place in 663 LG, and it skips to a new epoch in what would be 665, but now becomes 1 RG.
Well, the world evolves.
Right.
Depending on different things that happen. That's really kind of what, Do you allow that world to evolve as you're creating one campaign, or you're ending one campaign and creating another one? Do you evolve it from one thing to the next?
Right, and so I've had 3 campaigns in this world. 2 of them never got to come to a closure. One was so close, the other one wasn't even close.
Yeah.
And that group just, there was only 3 or 4 of us playing at the time, and that I think there was 3 of us.
3 of us.
Well, there was 3.
Yeah.
Sometimes 4.
Yeah.
And that world just went, that gaming group just went,
yeah.
Kapoots during COVID.
For reasons we're not going to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, that was just a very political thing. It just fell apart.
So, the game that they're in right now had actually been planned to be the second campaign, happening 95 years from the future of when the first campaign was.
Yeah.
So, keeping the same world is just move it forward in time.
So, in a sense, then, this is a question to ask all DMs. When you create worlds, do you swap worlds? Do you switch worlds?
Do you have multiple worlds within your...
Do you switch realms? Do you switch continents? Epoch, time periods? That sort of thing. Or do you try to set your game, because you've invested so much in your private world, do you just keep setting your games in that world but changing things around a little bit?
Yeah. Do you move to a different corner of the realm?
Yeah.
Do you move it to a Oriental type campaign, or an African American, or not African American, but an African campaign, or a South America type campaign? Mm-hmm. What do you do?
Yeah.
Do you move it to a different corner, or do you keep it in the same corner of the world?
Yeah.
And just something else happens.
So another thing then within that setting, then what do you do with all the side plots that you created, or the side characters that you created?
Yeah.
Do you tie them up, or do you just kind of let them hang? I know that from talking to people and from watching movies and reading books and playing games, I know one of the things that really gets people upset is when you leave a lot of hanging threads that never get tied up. Characters that seem to go off and do something and you never know what happens to them. Storylines that sort of end for no specific reason. Things, different kind of actions or plots that just disappear, or people appear out of nowhere, like where'd they come from and where did that character go? That sort of thing. What do you do with those subplots? Do you just tie them all up at the end? Do you leave them wide open just in case you need to return to that realm? What would you do?
Yeah, that's a great point. In the first campaign, there's a king who is basically comatose.
Yeah, the sleeping king. How are we going to tie that up?
Yeah.
We have a character who was with us from the very beginning in the first campaign. For years, we played with him. We played with that character. That character was in our game. For years. Now he's not able to be in this campaign because of various reasons. What do we do with his character? Because it's highly integral to the storyline and how it folds up. We're going to have to, come up with an idea about what to do. What to do with his character. Because you just can't let it hang.
No, you don't want to
he's integral to the storyline.
Kill him off because he was there from the start.
Exactly.
Other people who bailed on the campaign, well, we'll see what happens to them. But
what do you do with people who aren't there anymore? How do you end their characters? Do you have this kind of malicious glee of having them eaten by cockroaches, or do they disappear? Do they create a magic sphere, and then all of a sudden they're sucked into it, or whatever, stuff like that? I mean,
created a sphere of annihilation.
Yeah, that's it. So that's a worthwhile question, I think. What to do with those side plots?
Tie them up.
Yeah, and then of course when you do finish this long-term adventure, when you go on to the next adventure, what kind of adventure is it going to be?
Yeah, is it again? Is it going to be in the same world? Are you going to take it to a different world, different corner of the world?
Different time period.
Different time period.
100 years in the past, 100 years in the future.
Right.
All sorts of things. What can you do with it?
Whereas in my campaign, so the first campaign, when I said started in 663, the second part of that campaign was 50 years into the future.
Yep.
And then the current campaign is 95 years from when the first one was.
Yeah.
So, we've advanced the timelines, and unfortunately we never got to finish the first closure. We're going to finally reach that point.
Yeah,
because
I hope so.
When this campaign, here just a few weeks ago, I reached out to my group and I said, okay, party, here's your options for the next campaign. We're drawing to a close on this one. What do you want to do? And I threw out this poll of, do you want to play this game? Do you want to play this game? Do you want to play this game?
Yeah.
Do you want to play this game?
Yeah.
I think I gave them 5 or 6 choices, and majority was going to rule. And the funny thing was, the majority of them picked to go back to the original campaign that they had never been a part of, which Tom had been a part of,
Yeah.
to try and bring some closure for Tom's character. And this way, when their characters that they currently have 95 years in the future are going to be around 10th, 11th, 12th level, the new campaign, the old campaign, they get to start off at 11th level, so now they get to continue playing a new character of 11th plus level.
Yeah, that'll be the 11th level that we'll be starting in.
Right.
So that's a whole nother broadcast we're going to do when we talk about starting high-level campaigns. But it really gives a unique opportunity for everybody in the group to start something new at a high level instead of starting at level 1.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is Delaney polled everybody in the group, and everybody came up with this idea. Now the thing is should all DMs do that when they finally finish an adventure? And if you do, you still want to have those character players in your gaming group, what do? Do you poll them and say, okay, everybody, what do you want to do? Does one of you characters, do you want one of your, you know, does one of the players in this group want to be a DM now and give me a chance to be a player? Or do we want to move to a new gaming system? You know what I mean? A different gaming system. Do you want to move to the One Ring? Or do you want to move to Cthulhu? Or do you want to do something like that? Do you want to move out of Pathfinder? Do you want to swap plot lines? You know, differently? Do you want it to be like a steampunk world? Something, or science fiction? Something like that. And so, I mean, you know, that's the way we set it up so that people could have some input about what they like and dislike.
Right, yeah. And then, you know, as a DM, finding out what your players liked, disliked of the campaign. You know, did they like the complexity of it? Did they like the storyline, the plots, the closure that you let them have?
Yeah. And that closure is really important because I think it does contribute to the morale of a gaming group so that everybody feels like there's a closeness there, to where, you know, they're like, okay, I was able to wrap up everything. I was able to wrap up my character. My character didn't just die. You know, I was able to take my character. Maybe I'll be able to, resurrect this character in another game, another high-level game sometime. Yeah. You know, and I can keep playing this character, which would be great.
Absolutely. So, what do you think on ending a campaign? What do you do? What do you think should be done as a DM or even as a player? What do you want your DM to do? You know, if you get to finally come to the end of that campaign instead of it just dying and fading into the netherworld.
Yeah, because, I mean, like Delaney was saying, as long as she's played, there's only been one campaign that's ever actually made it all the way to the end. And now we're in this short time span, we're actually able to end 2 campaigns, or work at ending 2 campaigns. Right. One long-term and one reasonably short-term.
Well, the short-term one's been going on for about 1.5 years.
Yeah. But what would we do when we finally be able to end those 2? You know what I mean? So, you know, it's kind of like we have an actual really good opportunity here to get some closure with these different games. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, nothing like writing Game of Thrones and only getting to book 5 and or the Wheel of Time and only writing to book 9 and having somebody else have to finish off your story. Nothing like that as a GM, you know. Yeah. You want to have some closure as a GM. Absolutely. And as a player, you want to have some closure.
Absolutely.
So what do you think?
Yeah.
So anyway, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, spread the word, make a comment. We try to return comment to everything that you comment about, because we really appreciate it.
We do.
Tell your friends about us if you like us. Spread the word, because we really appreciate what everyone's doing. You know, we're not here to get 10 billion followers and trying to make $10 billion, whatever. We're here to talk about our experience and maybe pass some experience on to you or give you ideas for your adventures.
Yeah, so, this is all about our gaming experience. Right. That's all it is.
So anyway, we're going to end this episode of Wizards of the Tower.
Roleplay.
May all your adventures end in an epic way.
But still, keep on rolling.
Have a good one.